Okay, dear colleagues, may I ask to take your seats, please? For the start of our group, and I want first of all to say welcome to Mrs. Haidar, the husband of Raif Badawi. So welcome. I have to tell you that we are very pleased with the award of this year with the Sakharov Prize for your husband, for Raif Badawi. It is this group, Ensaf, who is very closely connected to the views you and your husband share. And it is also this group which deeply admire the courageous struggle, I can say, for freedom, for human rights and for dignity, which your husband and also you are leading in the face of what I call a barbaric regime. And through his writing, Raif shows, I think, the path, the way for an open, for a liberal, for a critical thinking within Islam, and he fights for freedom of religion, for freedom of expression, for the rights of women, and above all, for a tolerant society. And I think he fights for values which are very much needed in the societies across the Arab world and which are now also unfortunately lacking in many communities nowadays in Europe. So we all know, dear colleagues, that Raif Badawi is paying for his courage with a very high price. The regime imposed a barbaric punishment, 1,000 lashes, 10 years in prison, a fine of more than 200,000 euro. The flogging was suspended after the first set of 50 lashes, and even the prison doctors acknowledged that more flogging would mean an inevitable death sentence if it continues. So we admire his courage, your courage, in spite of everything, to go forward with your fight, not only for the freedom of your husband, but for all courageous people across the Arab world. And so the Sakharov Prize you will receive tomorrow, there is certainly an acknowledgement of the work and the courage of Raif Badawi and the importance of the struggle for human rights and freedom of expression. And I'm very pleased that already 2 years ago, I think 2 years ago, Marietje, you started with this idea to give this prize to Raif Badawi. So it's also a clear message to the Saudi authorities, what we are doing, to pardon your husband, to release him. So it's a real pressure. That's also one of the reasons we decided in the European Parliament to give this prize to him. So that pressure is mounting on the authorities in Saudi Arabia, and that could allow him to reunite with his family, with you, and with your 3 children. And last but not least, we want also our governments to understand that by giving this prize, maybe the time has come to reconsider our relationship that we have with Saudi Arabia, and to put pressure to at least respect fundamental human rights. And we hope that this prize will play a part in this, that it can help, and I can tell you that Raif can count on the continued support of our liberal family in the future. Thank you, and I give you the floor. Mais j'aurais mieux fait de.
But perhaps I should have given my introduction in French, because I've understood that you would rather express yourself in French than in English. And it's a good thing from time to time that we hear other languages than English being utilized in our parliament.
Yeah, okay. I hope they have finished. Was it so long what I said? That they still... Okay.
مساء الخير للجميع. أشكركم على.
Well, good evening, everyone. I would like to thank you for the honor of receiving me. I'd like to thank the European Parliament for having awarded the Sakharov Prize to Raif. I would like to thank all the parties who voted in favor of Raif. So I would like to thank all of you for these nice days I'm spending here in Strasbourg. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Now, I would so much have loved for Raif to be here to give this speech himself. I really don't have a lot to say. It would have been better for Raif to say what he wanted to himself. Of course, Raif would like me to talk about human rights, the freedom of expression, freedom of the press. Unfortunately, he's so far from me. I would at least have liked for him to see or hear what's happening, but he has no access to any information. I just hope that he's in good health. I fervently hope that the sacrifice will not be the end of his journey. The sacrifice is extremely important, and I was filled with hope that Raif might be given his freedom. I dreamt that Raif could be here. However, unfortunately, I'm still hoping, and I hope, as I said, this will not be the end of his journey, and I hope that you will remain at my side until Raif gets his freedom and can come to Canada. Thank you very much. I'm prepared to answer any question you might have. Thank you very much for receiving me.
Thank you very much. Marietje, can I give you as first the floor?
Thank you very much, Guy, and welcome again, Ensaf, to our group this time. We've had a chance to meet each other a couple of times, but it's always a pleasure. And I just want to echo the words that EU Special Representative for Human Rights, Stavros Lambrinidis, said about you yesterday, is that you inspire us in your own right, and this is certainly true. I've seen how you've campaigned over the past couple of years. Not a job you chose, but one that you did in a remarkable way. So often when I open my Facebook or my Twitter, I found your messages with news, with ideas of how once more we could raise the profile of your husband and the courageous work he does. And I think as such you are really an example of the power of women in Saudi Arabia, of which we would like to see a lot more. And we also really wish that you and your children can be reunited with your husband and that he one day can receive the prize that we award him tomorrow personally and in good health. I think it is important to see that this Parliament too has come around. Sometimes interests about trade or energy or security trump the focus on human rights, but for our group human rights have always been at the forefront. And we have only one very, very high award, which is the Sakharov Prize, which now your husband very much deserves. And I think Raif's courage and his strong words truly represent the inalienable longing for freedom that every person, man or woman, in Saudi Arabia or Iran, in Tunisia or in China, in Venezuela or in Syria, the freedom that people long for, even if they've never lived it, but they know it in their minds. And I think it's also important that we look at the political side of the discussions around the universality of human rights. And we must not allow cultural relativism to undermine the notion of universality of human rights. Raif's situation shows this very, very clearly, that even the strongest repression and even the most barbaric of punishments did not stop him from creating the blog Free Saudi Liberals Network. And for the colleagues who have not yet read the book by Raif Badawi, I would recommend doing so. And I just wanted to end with a quote from him because it shows so clearly how much we, as liberals here in Europe, feel a sort of universal connection with his thinking. Because Raif Badawi says, and I quote, "For me, liberalism simply means live and let live. This is a splendid slogan. However, the nature of liberalism, particularly the Saudi version, needs to be clarified. It is even more important to sketch the features and parameters of liberalism to which the other faction, controlling and claiming exclusive monopoly of the truth, is so hostile that they are driven to discredit it without discussion or fully understanding what it actually means. They have succeeded in planting hostility to liberalism in the minds of the public and turning people against it, lest the carpet be pulled out from under their feet. But their hold over people's minds and society shall vanish like dust carried off in the wind." It's the end of the quote, and I think it's one of the inspiring thoughts by your husband and one of the reasons his ongoing writing, his blog, Saudi Liberals Network, that made us join your campaign for his freedom, and we will continue to support it.
Thank you, Marietje. Alexander?
Oui, merci. Je voulais juste remercier.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Mrs. Haidar for being with us this afternoon. And I endorse everything that Marika has just said. I have a question for you. We've heard that Raif has been transferred to another prison in Saudi Arabia and that he has started a hunger strike. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I would just like to know what you think. I mean, are you even more worried now because of these events, if indeed they are true?
Antonio?
Obrigado, minha senhora Ensaf Haidar.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Haidar, I would like to say at the outset that what is happening in Saudi Arabia, what has happened to your husband, has already happened here in Europe. Religious fanaticism leads to intolerance, hate, civil war, persecution of innocent people simply because people think that they are the sole guarantors of the truth. Fortunately, we in Europe have freedom of conscience in Europe. We have freedom of thought. We have tolerance as counterweights. Europe hasn't done all it could have done for your husband and for others who have been persecuted by fundamentalism and fundamentalists in Saudi Arabia. I think it should do more. And this is partly because of economic considerations getting in the way. I will be doing all I can, and I think the group will of course agree with me that there needs to be a change here. We need to see better human rights in Saudi Arabia, more liberty, freedom of conscience. We were all in favour of fighting for that. And hopefully your husband will soon be in a position to join us, because we cannot allow countries to behave with impunity, infringement of human rights and persecuting people who simply want to see freedom in their own country. And I'm hoping and I think that it will not take too long for you to be reunited. I hope that with all my heart. Thank you.
Beatriz.
Gracias y muchísimas gracias, señora.
Thank you, and thank you, Mrs. Haidar, for being here today. We have taken great pleasure in seeing you when you have met with us in the Committee on Human Rights. I would like to endorse what our colleagues have said, Alexander and Marika. You are an inspiration to us all, and you also are the defense of human rights incarnate. I would like to add that I'm sure that we all feel that we have to speak up even more to defend the values that the European Union upholds, especially freedom of expression. I think that we have sufficient tools to do that. We can strengthen these tools and use them better. For instance, the Instrument for Democracy and Human Rights and the program that's just been launched, the mechanism to defend those that defend human rights. I think that it is an obligation incumbent on us to protect those that defend and speak for those whose rights are being infringed. As Alexander said, we would like to express how concerned we are about Raif's health, especially now that we hear that he has gone on a hunger strike. The prize that will be awarded your husband and that you will receive on his behalf is in recognition of his courage and the fact that he defends the human rights of all of us. It is a symbol for the world too, and especially because of the country from whence you come. Saudi Arabia is in our thoughts. It is part of our programs and plans. And we will continue to work towards greater freedom of expression in your country and worldwide.
Marielle de Sarnez.
As my colleagues have done, I too would like to say that that your husband is very much in our thoughts, and I too would like to have news of him. He is in our thoughts, and your presence here is a great honor for us. It is very important that you are here today. It is a signal which strengthens solidarity amongst nations. And I would like to pay tribute to your courage and that of your husband. You will receive the Sakharov Prize on behalf of your husband. I think he largely deserves it. And I think that it should not, however, represent the end of something. It should be the beginning of something, the beginning of something that we should live together, that we should go through together. We should go through this hand in hand. We're not going to forget about you in the next few months. We're going to continue to work towards what Raif defends. We want to mobilize the European Parliament in this regard, and we want to mobilize each of the member states that comprise the European Union. I think that this is fundamental. It is essential that things change. And for things to change, we need to mobilize and work together. So we're not going to leave you be. We're not going to forget about you once you leave the European Parliament. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your very kind words in my regard. And thank you very much for your show of solidarity and the solidarity you have shown towards Raif. Yes, he is in a new prison now, and I'm very, very concerned indeed. He announced on Tuesday that he would be on hunger strike for a very simple reason. He was transferred from one prison to another. And if one is transferred to this new prison, it means that prisoners' files are classified. We don't know why Raif was transferred to this new prison. We know that Raif's file is still being investigated, that the matter is still being investigated. King Salman is aware of the situation. He is considering whether a pardon should be granted Raif or not. This, in fact, is what I heard last week. I haven't been able to get in touch with Raif. I haven't been able to speak to him, nor he with me. I hope he's in good health, and I hope that he will oblige to put a stop to this hunger strike. He is not in very good health. A few weeks ago, his health began to deteriorate. He is far from his children. He hasn't seen his children for 4 years. If he were to lose hope, if he were to become very pessimistic indeed, that would be terrible. I know that when he thinks about his situation, he sheds tears, he cries, especially when he thinks of his children. His eldest child is already in his 30s. I hope that we will continue to work together and do what we can so that Raif is set free. I hope that he will be set free in 2016, in the year to come, and that he can be together with us and that we can all celebrate his freedom in 2016.